All right, so where we left off from last time, Paul D really wants to, he wanted to confront Seeth about his love affair with Beloved for the last 3 weeks. However, there's something about him, he doesn't know if he's man enough to do that, you know? And this is when he flashbacks to the time when he was at Sweet Home with Mr. Garner. Mr. Garner had very special treatment with the slaves. He would, unlike other slave masters, he would allow them to have their own judgments. He would make them make their own calls, and he allowed them to have like free decision making. So he taught them how to be men through that, and he would always remind them that they are men, you know, not animals. But unfortunately, when the slaves would leave Sweet Home, they would be reminded that they are animals. And especially when school teacher came around, he is the one that really scraped off that whole idea of slaves can be men. So in present time, Paul D wants to know, like, he's trying to do the manly thing and try to confront Seeth about his affair with Beloved, but it's not working out. Because she gets so happy to see him, and then he just forgets about it. And when they're like, you know, walking their way back, walking back home, it's, mind you, it's winter, so it's snowing. So Beloved is like standing afar, and she's holding a shawl, and she wants to give it to her mother, Seeth. But then Seeth does the very motherly thing, and she wraps Beloved with it, and Paul D's just there, you know, third wheeling them technically. But it's just really awkward, the dynamic, and I think you can feel that, you know, while reading and imagining the scenarios. I remember also how before that happened, Paul D was talking about how he wants to have a child with Seeth, and Seeth is just really not up for it because she, yeah, I think it's self-explanatory. The same night, however, oh, also that night, when they were having dinner and stuff, after dinner, also just picture how awkward it would be sitting at a dinner table with the love triangle going on between like your lover and her resurrected daughter. It's like very awkward, I'm sure, for all of them except Seeth, because she has no idea what's happening. Okay, so that same night, Seeth allows Paul D up to sleep with her in the bed, and she is still talking about how, like, her argument against having children. Paul D is sleeping. She's just like talking with herself. But at that same time, Denver, Seeth's like remaining daughter, and Beloved are sitting downstairs. And Denver explains to her that if Paul D leaves, then Seeth is gonna be like extra mad, and she's gonna be all depressed. And so that made Beloved really upset, because she doesn't want Seeth to be all over someone who isn't her. So it's really awkward. But then she does, like, Beloved does the most awkwardest thing, and she's so upset by this news that she heard from Denver that she pulls out her own like wisdom tooth, and she's not crying about it. So Denver is like, yo, why aren't you crying? Like, that must really hurt. And then Beloved agrees, so then she starts crying. But it just comes to show you, like, could this be a symbol of, okay, the more Beloved doesn't have Seeth around her, the more she vanishes away? It's like she reappeared because, you know, she just reappeared, but her reappearance depends on Seeth's attachment to her. So if she only comes and hears about how Seeth could not be that attached to her because she has Paul D in her life, that made her upset. There's also something about this story novel so far that keeps going back and forth in time. It's like this dynamic in time is honestly really tough to follow as a reader, but whatever. So moving forth, this is the part where we start getting a little more backstory on Baby Suggs. So Baby Suggs, um, when she was appointed to Mr. and Mrs. Garner, Mrs. Garner specific called her Jenny, and to figure out why that was the case, they explained that her slave papers said that her name was Jenny. However, she argued against that because, first of all, her husband's name is Suggs. So, and then her husband would always call her baby. So she goes by Baby Suggs. And the reason why she's so attached to that and going by that name is because whenever her husband is freed, if he is still out there, he'll know that she's still alive and he'll try to find her once again. We need to also talk about how Baby Suggs is the one that threw that party on the block for when Seeth and Hallie came back. Hallie Hale. I think Hallie. And with that whole party, even though Seeth was in a lot of like physical pain, they still were able to throw a party because they were so happy about her coming back. And Stamp paid. He also was extremely happy, and his only concern was how he needs to go get berries. And I think picking berries is a symbolic action too, because apparently, like, okay, I mean, I picked berries when I was younger from like trees, and it is a really difficult process. Like the tree has all these thorns and it's like high up all the way there, but he was able to come with like a ton of berries. So I think that's symbolic. So Baby Suggs had that conversation with Mr. Garner about her name and why like Mrs. Garner would call her Janie. When Mr. Garner was dropping her off to the Bodwins, who they initially helped free the slaves. So when the Bodwins wanted to figure out a plan on what to do with Baby Suggs, because she was old in age and stuff, they decided, and because she knows how to like make shoes, do laundry, like she can do all these things from a home, they decided to give her their old home, which is, guess what, 124, house 124. And while they were like while she was being dropped off to her new home 124, she was asking about like if there are churches around, and she was emphasizing that no, she does not want a church, like she doesn't want to attend church because because she already found God on her own, but she wanted to really like link with a pastor who knows how to read and write, so she can start writing letters to like find all of her children and have them all be under the same roof. This part of the novel was really dark. It was really tough for me to read it. I felt really cringe reading it. But it's about what happened the night when Seeth killed her baby. And it was told from the this is also another thing that like it doesn't annoy me, but it's just tough to follow, having each section be told from like a different point of view. I don't like that. But so this part was being told from like the school teacher, who's extremely evil, his nephew, the sheriff, and a slave catcher. They were trying to like catch Seeth, but then they break into the house that she's in, and they see Seeth like with the two boys just there, like her two boys just there. Denver being are also around, but they also see the dead baby, which was really explicitly described. I don't understand if Steve started throwing the baby around, but I know that she used a tool to like cut her baby up. Honestly, this is really cringy, guys. I don't want to keep talking about it. But I think there are two really important things to keep in mind once reading this. Okay, one thing is, first of all, okay, the reason why Steve went crazy is because she was getting like raped, and like she was being forced down, and they were like drinking her breast milk, which is something really also strange because later we'll talk about how it's really important for Steve to nurse her own children. So the nephew, the guy who like did what he did to Steve, he was thinking to himself, oh, like even if that was done to me, I would never do such an animalistic thing as and kill my children. Steve was trying to kill all her other children too, but baby Suggs stopped her. And I think also a really weird thing that happened during that scene was when like Denver needed to get fed, like she needed to be nursed, and baby Suggs was doing it while having her other dead baby's blood all over her, which is extremely unsanitary. Long story short, the sheriff like takes her and they drive her to prison. But while that was happening, obviously there's like a scene in the neighborhood, so the people they don't feel that sympathetic because they know something outrageous just happened, including like involving Seed. So instead of them singing, they were humming, which I think also, like from my previous knowledge in slave narratives, they use singing and like hums and particular rhythms to express things that they can't say verbally because it would get them in trouble. Anyway, we fast forward. Stampede, Stampede. I don't know why I say Stampede. Stampede. He tries to tell Paul D about Seeth's history, the one that we just talked about, because it had an article and stuff, and Paul D just wouldn't believe it because to him, Seeth is not the present Seeth is not the Seeth that is being represented in the past. Paul D then comes to confront Seeth about this whole thing, hoping that she'll agree that it's not her or it's just like an identity mistake or something. But Seeth doesn't back down, and she doesn't deny what happened. And Paul D just he is so stunned by the news. He says that there must have been another way for her to save her babies from the things that she knows and the things that she went through. But to her, it's like, okay, you won't ever know what it's like, because one, you can not be that man enough or woman enough to take love to that length and protect your babies in the name of love. And that was like them breaking up. They broke up. So when Stampede knew that they broke up, he felt really guilty about Paul D leaving the 124 house, because he's the one that told Paul D that, like, he showed him the article and he basically told him that it's true. So Stampede, for some reason, he feels like this type of kinship with baby Suggs, even though she's not currently around anymore. So he feels like he should be the guardian angel of her house. So he would pass by there a lot of times, but he wouldn't he wouldn't go in, which is something that he wouldn't regularly do. So he noticed that there's a stranger, aka Beloved, in the house. So he tries to like go and ask around and see what's up with that. Until he bumps into one of his friends, Ella, and she tells him that Paul D, for example, has been sleeping in the church. And Stampede feels like, oh, that's really unethical, how dare we do that? Even though I would like to point out that the reason how and why Stampede got his name Stampede, which was Jonathan, but then he changed it to Stampede, is because when he like when him and his wife were owned by slaves, he decided to gift off his wife to his owner's son so that he could sleep with her. And to him, that freed him from all his obligations that he would have or currently does have in life. So to him, he doesn't owe anything anymore because he already did the biggest thing, which was give off his wife, which is something, yani, very hypocritical for him to say also after he, like, look at what he's doing, yani. He thinks that what is being done in his community is not okay when he himself in the past did something that was extremely not okay. There was also this time when Steve kind of gets a confirmation that Beloved is her resurrected baby, because when Steve was their mom back then, she would hum a specific tune. And when Steve took Denver and Beloved ice skating once, Beloved was humming the same tune. So to her, that was like a confirmation. Also, we need to talk about how like powerful Steve's character is. I mean, she took the kids out to ice skate because she's unshook by the breakup that she just had. And also, when she wanted to go grocery shopping, she knows that the local grocery store owner is a big racist. So instead of dealing with his BS, she decided to steal the groceries. So she doesn't need to deal with any confrontational racist outrages. And that made her think back about her time at Sweet Home, and there is a character called Sixo, who we can kind of tell isn't fully black. I think if I understood correctly, he's like he has some native roots, which again, I think that Aya mentioned this in her last post, but slavery didn't only affect specific type of people, it affected like a ton of people, including whites, including blacks, including natives, including everyone else that was involved. I think that's called an epigraph, I'm not sure. But yeah, so Sixo, he also stole a pig from one of the plantations, and to justify it, he told his slave owner that it's so he can eat and so he could feel more energized working, and so he can work better in the plantation. But then that's when school teacher whipped him and told him definitions belong to the definers, not to the defined. I thought that was really powerful and sad. Extremely sad. Just like how this whole novel is. I really didn't like the part that I needed to read and summarize because it's extremely dark. And I also think it's really important to talk about how this whole idea of animals keeps coming up. I think it's like extremely sad that this, like, within the slave narrative, like, not only did the school teacher do actual literal things to remind the slaves that they are literally just like animals to him, but even when Paul D and Seed had their breakup, Paul D was telling her, like, you have two legs, you don't have four legs, which is basically him telling her, like, okay, you did like a very animalistic move by killing your own kids, which is like too thick love. But yeah, so school teacher would even have like his nephews and stuff like measure the slaves and like observe them like they're animals, which is really sad. And that's one thing that Steve never talked about, but she only shared it with Beloved. We also need to keep in mind how Baby Suggs was freed because Hal bought her freedom, but with him buying her freedom, he, like, the school teacher didn't allow him to work no more, so he was like stripped away from any work, any way he could gain money to, like, because he knew obviously if he gets more money, he's gonna want to free more slave, like more relatives of his. And so the plan basically backfired. Like, Paul A got tortured, Cisco got killed, Hallie went crazy. So it was all just a really, it's like one good happened, but a lot of messes happened. So I think when we come and talk, because so the last part we had for today talks about, I mean, I thought this part of the novel was a little ranty, but I think it's one of the qualities that Toni Morrison really tries to emphasize on. Like, Seeth is obviously not a stable character. Even when it is her time to narrate, you know how we talked about each section is like told from a different viewpoint or point of view. So Seeth obviously is a crazy lady. I think we can all agree. But the last part that we had to read for today, she kept going on rants. Basically, her whole purpose is to to give an explanation to Beloved as to why she did what she did, if Beloved wanted an explanation. And her explanation kept, it wasn't really it wasn't too direct. She gave us a lot of back story about her life and her relationship with her mother. So Seeth believed that she never had an actual relationship or bond with her mother because her mother would she was being forced to nurse like all the children around her, including white babies, so they would have the priority. And so her own daughter, Seeth, would be the last one to get nursed, so sometimes she wouldn't be even left with anything at all. So this is why Seeth thinks it's really important to nurse her own children, because she never had really the opportunity to be nursed by her own child. But I think it's really important because she, like, there were like two lists, you know, of Seeth remembering things of the past. And one of the lists was to prove that Beloved shares all these signs to prove that she is her resurrected daughter. Basically, her whole argument is that, yes, my love is thick, but you are my child, and by having you be my child, I will also forever be yours. So that was a little crazy. Another thing that she told us that we didn't know before was that when she was released from prison, she was very close to prostituting behind the slaughterhouse and joined the Saturday Girls prostitution club. But the Bodwins saved her because they were able to shelter her. And that gave her the opportunity to feel free and smile, just like how her mother at some point started smiling, even though she knew that her mother probably didn't smile, genuinely smile, because she was obviously hurting. And yeah, I hope that summarized the very long section we had to read for today. Also, I'll put my questions below, so please do make sure to answer them. And I hope everyone is safe, and thank you for listening.